Imagine standing in the heart of Beijing, surrounded by towering buildings and the echoes of history. It's spring of 1989, and the air is alive with hope. Thousands of students, workers, and everyday citizens gathered in Tiananmen Square. They hold banners, chant slogans, and dream of change. But within weeks, this square at the beating heart of China's capital becomes the site of a tragedy the world will never forget. The story begins earlier that year. Across China, people were grappling with corruption, inflation, and political stagnation. Inspired by the winds of reform blowing through Eastern Europe, young Chinese students began to demand something radical: democracy. On April 15, 1989, a beloved leader passed away. He was a reformer, a symbol of hope for students. His death became the spark for a movement. Within days, Tiananmen Square turned into a sea of people. Students sang, debated, and called for freedom of speech, an end to corruption, and political reform. The movement swelled, with over 1 million people gathering at its peak. This wasn't just a student protest anymore, it was a national awakening. But the government saw it differently. The Communist Party, led by Deng Xiaoping, viewed the protests as a threat to its authority. By late May, the tension between the people and the state was at a boiling point. Martial law was declared. Troops and tanks began advancing toward Beijing, but they faced an unexpected challenge. Ordinary citizens blocked their paths. For weeks, the protesters held their ground. Images of a hunger strike and students building a towering goddess of democracy statue echoed around the globe. It seemed, for a moment, that change might truly come. On the night of June 3rd, under the cover of darkness, the Chinese government made its move. Tanks and armed soldiers rolled into the square. Protesters tried to block their advance, some throwing Molotov cocktails or using makeshift barricades, but they were no match for the heavily armed troops. By the early hours of June 4th, gunfire rang out, and the square turned into chaos. Eyewitnesses described scenes of horror: students carrying wounded friends, parents searching for their children, and cries for help echoing through the square. Estimates of the death toll vary, ranging from hundreds to possibly thousands, as the government quickly clamped down on information. The government labeled the movement a counter-revolutionary riot and arrested thousands. Families of the victims were silenced, and any mention of the event was erased from public memory in China. But the world remembers. The image of Tank Man, the lone figure standing in front of a line of tanks, became a symbol of courage and defiance. Though the movement was crushed, its spirit lives on, reminding us of the cost of freedom and the enduring power of hope. Tiananmen Square is not just a place or an event, it is a question. It asks us, what are we willing to stand for? What does freedom mean to us? And how do we honor those who risk everything to speak truth to power? 30 years later, the square is quiet, but the echoes of that fateful night still resonate, urging us never to forget.